Okay, well, welcome everybody. My name is Mark Boughton, and I am Governor Lamont's Senior Advisor on Infrastructure. We are here today to talk about how to electrify your school bus fleet. And we got a great panel here for you today with some important information. And we're very blessed and honored to have each and every person here. But I want to put it at the top here, our awesome commissioner of the Department of Environment and Energy. She's awesome, visionary, hardworking, and just somebody that represents our state so well. So Commissioner Dykes, I just want to throw it over to you for some thoughts about what this means for our environment and some things that we can do at DEEP. And then we have a great speaker in Jack Rourke.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Commissioner, and it's great to be with everyone. And I appreciate that very generous and maybe overly generous introduction. But we're really glad at Connecticut DEEP to be a partner, both with EPA and with the Commissioner Boughton and the BILT team, but most importantly with all of our municipal partners in helping to deploy clean school buses. I'll just say, I do want to kind of remark that, look, we've been experiencing firsthand some of the really challenging impacts of climate change here in our state. Earlier this week, I was with the governor and Commissioner Hurlbert, talking with farmers who have just been really pounded by a lot of challenging weather events. We have the wildfire smoke from Canada. We've just announced another, alert related to air quality impacts from that wildfire smoke. I know a lot of municipalities are struggling to dig out of the impacts of flooding over the last week or two. So, this is unfortunately our new reality. And the only way, we're not going to be able to outrun climate change. We have to slow it down. And one of the ways that we do that is through investing in school buses and other clean vehicles that can help reduce emissions. And by the way, I love clean buses. They're helping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, air quality, especially for our kids who are especially vulnerable to exposure to air pollution from diesel emissions. And of course, we know that cars and trucks and heavy duty vehicles are the single largest contributor to statewide climate pollution. It's 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions that we're generating in our state, but it's about 70% of the air pollution that we're creating here in Connecticut. And we know, educators know that a lot of our kids are experiencing elevated levels of asthma and respiratory illness. And so reducing some of that exposure to air pollution also means fewer kids struggling to breathe, fewer kids missing school because they're in the emergency room to deal with a respiratory illness. So there's just so many tremendous benefits that come with helping to shift to cleaner vehicles. Today in Connecticut, we have about 7,500 school buses. And of those, about 2,000 are in communities that are defined by DECD as environmental justice communities or distressed municipalities. DEEP has, I'm proud that we've funded 27 electric school bus deployments in the state to date. We've done that through our Volkswagen settlement funds. And, that's been really exciting to see some of those first movers and first adopters. But 27 is not 2,000 and it's not 7,500. So we have a long way to go. And I'm really excited that with the support of our congressional delegation and the Biden administration, we now have significant amounts of federal funds that are going to be available to help us accelerate the transition to clean school buses. So I know we're really excited to hear more about the federal funding under the EPA Clean School Bus Program that is helping school districts replace existing school buses with clean and zero emission buses. I just want to note that at the same time that our leaders in Washington were working on that national legislation to support clean school buses, legislators here in Connecticut working with Governor Lamont passed Public Act 22-25, the Connecticut Clean Air Act, which set a target to require 100% of school buses that serve EJ communities to be zero emission vehicles by 2030, and all school districts to be 100% electric in their school buses by 2040. And most importantly, the statute, this is not an unfunded mandate. The statute comes with about $20 million in bond authorizations that DEEP will be administering to provide for some matching state grants to school districts to help supplement the funding that will be coming from the EPA school bus program. So that's really exciting, but we are not going to make that progress to get to 100% without all of you. I'm really delighted that we have today Jack Rourke, the Senior Advisor for Infrastructure from EPA, who's going to be with us to share some information about the application process. We have some of our terrific team from our Air Bureau at DEEP who are working closely on deploying the state level funds. Paul Farrell is on and others. And so we're excited to be part of this webinar today, hear your questions, hear from our terrific partners at EPA, and ultimately to help accelerate the deployment of these clean school buses. So I will hand it over to Jack if he's ready to take it from here.
Sure, thank you. Thanks so much for having me here today. Just give me a moment to share my slides. But really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you to the Commissioner for inviting me to be here today. Before I was in this role, we were colleagues, and I was the Pennsylvania infrastructure coordinator for Governor Wolf. So certainly understand a lot of these issues from the state perspective, and having worked with a lot of school districts in Pennsylvania on these issues. So I'm glad you're able to join us today to learn more about this program. So, just for the agenda, I'm going to start with an overview of the program, outline some goals of the program, sort of do a recap of the rebate program that was launched last year, talk about some resources for recipients if you've already won a rebate award, and sort of go through an overview of the grant program, which launched a few months ago, and then sort of talk about some other funding opportunities and resources as well. So just to give you a brief synopsis of the program, under the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed about a few years ago at this point, EPA was provided $5 billion over 5 years for replacement of existing school buses with zero emission and clean school buses. These new clean school bus replacements will produce either zero or low tailpipe emissions compared to older diesel predecessors. School bus upgrades funded through this program will result in cleaner air on the bus, in the bus loading area, and the communities in which they operate. The first funding opportunity was the rebate program that I mentioned earlier, and the second funding opportunity is the Clean School Bus Grant Program, which launched in April and will close in August. Just to sort of give you an overview here as well, last year, since it was the first year of the program, we were just able to get the rebate program launched. We have the grant program that is open, and we expect to do a rebate program later this year, and that will probably be the cadence for the remainder of the program, giving out about $1 billion a year. So last year, the rebate program gave out $1 billion. This year, combined with the Clean School Bus Grant Program and the rebate program, we expect to issue about $1 billion in funding opportunities. So just to go through some of the goals, EPA's goals in this program, it's to engage stakeholders in program development, evolve the program over time based on successes and lessons learned, promote cost parity between bus technologies, allow school districts to apply for multiple funding opportunities, maximize the number of zero emissions buses and clean buses that get funded, and ensure broad geographic distribution of all the awards. So for the rebate program, this was a streamlined program that was able to get off the ground and running pretty quickly. Program development and selection and the funding process all happened much quicker than a traditional federal grant program. This is sort of, we really want to get money out the door in the first year of the program. So, this program was designed to be very straightforward. And rebates are for bus replacements and for infrastructure only. The quickest timeline for fleets to receive funding. I'm sorry, I just sort of received a note that people weren't seeing the slides. Is that happening for all folks, trying to see if there's anything else we can do here?
I can see the slides.
Okay.
John P., if you clicked on Jack, it would make just his image show. Maybe click on him again. It could be an issue on just your end.
Thanks. All right, so just for the rebate program, these were the eligible applicants: state and local government entities responsible for providing bus service to one or more public school systems, and two, for the purchase of school buses, nonprofit school transportation associations, Indian tribes, tribal organizations, or tribal controlled schools, and eligible contractors. So this was the criteria we used for the rebate program. It prioritized high-need school districts and low-income areas, rural school districts, and tribal school districts. There's more information online that can sort of how our criteria was used for this program. You know, and recognizing that this criteria, while it was used for the rebate program, will be updated over time, and to ensure we're targeting a wide range of schools in line with the goals I outlined earlier. So the maximum rebate amount per bus is dependent on the bus fuel type: zero emission, electric, low emission, propane, compressed natural gas, bus size, and if it meets one or more of our prioritization criteria. And you know, the rebate program allowed up to 25 school buses per district. The grant program that I'm going to get into later can provide more buses than that. So just as you're thinking of what you want to go after, the size of your school district, it's, you know, it might be good to just sort of look at these, you know, the differences between the program, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Infrastructure funding. So this is for zero emission buses only. You know, non-eligible expenses are utility distribution, transformers, electric meter. Eligible expenses include charging infrastructure, the bus itself, and the electric panel. We will not disperse funds in excess of the actual cost of the rebate buses and eligible infrastructure. And the cost above the maximum funding level are the responsibility of the applicant and the awardee. So, you know, for the 2022 rebate applications, we received over $4 billion in applications for 12,000 buses. More than 90% of the requests were for electric buses. The majority of the applicants met priority criteria as low income, rural, or tribal. We announced awards on October 26, 2022. You know, we wound up awarding, as I mentioned, about $1 billion, $965 million rebates. It was double amount the proposed funding. We, you know, given the demand, we upped the funding for the rebate program, nearly doubled it. This will fund about 2,500 buses in 400 school districts across the country. Once applicants receive their official selection letter, they can proceed with purchasing the new buses and eligible infrastructure. This is just a map of our Clean School Bus Rebate Awards map, you know, that you can see on our website. You know, as you can see, very broad. You know, we were able to hit most states in most in a lot of the territories. You know, and we're excited. We're excited about that. You know, there are awardees that were selected, and then they decided not to proceed with the bus, you know, due to issues with their school board approval or other things. So there were some applicants pulled off the wait list, but I think we're mostly through those at this point. So if you were on that wait list, it's I would say look towards the future rounds of the program. In 2022, we had the Clean School Bus Rebates PRP submissions. This is the payment request form. You know, these were due April 28th of this year after you received your award. You know, so we would start dispersing the funding. You know, we saw a lot of challenges with selectees as we were working through it, working with utilities to plan for the charging infrastructure, planning for bus and infrastructure prices that exceed rebate funds, getting timely approvals from school boards or other necessary entities to meet our guidelines. So just things to think about for future rounds to make sure you're considering all of these you know, challenges that other folks faced. And you know, I think particularly with the first round of the program, you know, the grants were sort of offered after the program launched, when a lot of school boards were not in session, the school year was over. So you know, I think like as we move forward, we're trying to be mindful of that. Recipient resources. You know, we offered a lot of office hours for, you know, we hosted 3 office hour sessions for rebate selectees, and we went through payment request forms, connecting with utilities, choosing chargers and bus types, navigating the hurdles that I mentioned earlier. And we also are partnering with the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation, which was set up under the Biden administration after the infrastructure bill passed. they've been able to provide technical assistance, and we'll be working with them as we continue with the program. Just generally, it might be good to connect with them if you have any questions, not just limited to clean school buses, but for just EVs and EV charging infrastructure in general. They're a great resource. So, just some of the lessons we've learned. Many selectees required assistance in planning for the infrastructure portion of their projects. We want to emphasize the need to start planning with utilities for infrastructure upgrades early, and need to connect with the joint office to help analyzing specific routes, the climate, selecting the right buses and chargers once you're an awardee. With the joint office, we are partnering to provide resources for folks to coordinate with utilities, identifying available funding and incentives, not just limited to this program, analyzing charging infrastructure needs, conducting a route analysis and planning routes, providing training and workforce development, resiliency planning, analyzing energy needs and grid impact, identifying solar and battery storage opportunities as well. The website is in the bottom, driveelectric.gov. That's the information for the joint office. Like I said, encourage you to check that out if you have not already. Part of the work we've done is we secured a pledge with utility engagement with a bunch of associations that represent the utilities. This was in response to a primary barrier that school districts are facing is uncertainty around the charging infrastructure deployment and how to engage with the companies. We understand that installation of the infrastructure can undergo long lead times and require close coordination. We are working closely with the National Electric Utility Company organization to support school districts through a utility pledge that includes facilitating communication between the electric providers and the school districts, providing technical assistance and support, and increasing funding and deployment. You can learn more about this utility pledge on our website, on our Clean School Bus Technical Assistance. Also encourage folks here to check that out as well. And just some other resources that are available on our website to assist with fleet electrification, just for our Clean School Bus program through the joint office, and then some non-federal resources. These are just really great resources as we are moving towards, further electrification, a lot of new funding opportunities out there. It's important to learn what's out there and to sync with your local communities and your governor's office and your state on what they're planning for electrification. So, I think there's a lot of good stuff out there. And, if you haven't learned about this yet, I encourage you to check this out. So, I think we're as we've already finished the rebate program, we've got a lot of feedback from our grantees and rebates through listening sessions, through stakeholder meetings, and through stakeholder input. We received through the Clean School Bus Helpline. I think a lot of the rebate programs worked for a lot of schools, but there were certainly gaps. Larger fleets were limited by the 25 bus maximum in the rebate program. Scrappage, some school buses don't own their buses to scrap. Prioritization, we understand that there's differing opinions on our criteria and funding for non-prioritized school districts. The good thing on all this is we have a lot more funding to get out the door. This has been a really popular program, so hopefully it will continue beyond the 5 years of funding that we have currently. So onto the 2023 Clean School Bus Grant Program. As I mentioned, it's now open. Grants need to be submitted no later than August 22nd at 11:59. You can learn more on our website about this program. One key difference from the rebate program to the grants program is that these have to be submitted through grants.gov. School districts, if you haven't gone after federal grant programs in the past, you need to register. This registration process can take time. It's not something you can do overnight. So I encourage you, if you're not registered already, to go to grants.gov, start that registration process. It can take some time. And if you haven't submitted a federal grant before, it can be a complicated process. So I want to make sure that you're giving yourself plenty of time to get your applications in before the deadline. So some questions on how the rebate program differs from the grant program. The rebate program is a quicker, simpler application. The grant program is longer, more detailed application process. It's a traditional federal grant program. The selection process, selectees were determined by random numbers generated in the lottery process. If they met the prioritization for grants, grant recipients were selected based on the evaluation of the application materials. That's like a long way of saying it's competitive. The rebate program was more randomized if you met the criteria programs. For project period support and flexibility, the rebate program was a shorter project period, less support, flexibility in the funding. For applicants, for the grant program, it's a longer application program. We can offer more support, flexibility in the funding, providing funding for training and administrative costs, and timing the project with longer project periods to complete the project. So, as you're evaluating if you want to go after the grant program or the rebate program, these are important things to take a look at. As I mentioned earlier, the grant program also can allow for a larger amount of buses, while the rebate program was limited to just 25. So, just things to think about when you're thinking what's right for you, for your school district. Some more of the differences between the programs. For the grant program, the prioritization, some additional districts will be eligible to self-certify as low income. Rural applicants are defined by the federal rural definition. As I touched on with the bus minimum, school districts in sub-programs will be eligible to go after 15 to 50 buses. Third-party programs can go after 25 to 100 buses, as long as they're serving at least 4 school district beneficiaries. And then there's funding for the EV infrastructure, funding for buses and eligible infrastructure is combined. Applicants have the flexibility in deciding how much bus funding to spend on each. So that's a little different from the rebate program and prioritization. And as I touched on earlier, the rebate program was for a little smaller amount of buses. So just things to think about as you're deciding what grant program or the rebate program to choose. So for this grant program that's open currently, we have $400 million for funding under this NOFO. This includes 2 sub-programs, one for the school district and tribal applicants. This is known as the school district sub-program, and one for third-party applications. This is the third-party sub-programs. So you're not really competing against each other. Eligible activities include the replacement of existing internal combustion engine buses with electric, propane, or compressed natural gas buses, as well as the purchase and installation of electric vehicle supply and infrastructure. We're also the program enables the statute enables the program to target communities with environmental justice concerns, communities that have been adversely and disproportionately affected by environmental, climate change, human health harms, and other risks. So just something to think about when you're putting in applications. So just sort of what I touched on earlier, just outlining the different program structures, the 2 different grant programs within this NOFO. One is for school districts and one is for sort of the third parties. We know a lot of folks contract out with their school districts. So, you could partner with your contractor, or you could go after yourself if you own your own buses. So different opportunities here, depending on how your district is set up. This sort of details our prioritization criteria for the grant program. It's once again features high need school districts and low income areas. More information here on how those are defined. Rural school districts, how that is defined. Bureau of Indian Affairs funded school districts, and school districts that receive basic support payments for children who reside on Indian lands. So just things to know here. More information on all of this on our website as well. This details the funding for replacement buses, sort of depending on the replacement buses and the type of buses that are being replaced, and sort of dictates on how much funding you can get. So you can see here, what the awards are, different awards depending on the sort of buses that you're looking to go after. And the buses serving school districts that are not prioritized have a little different criteria. This is just all helpful information as you're working on those applications. Just some key deadlines to remember. The notice opened in April. From May to August 9th. We're doing a series of webinars. All of these webinars and slides will be posted on our website, so you can learn more. You can check out another webinar if you have more questions. Folks can submit questions to EPA up until August 9th. If they have questions about the program, concerns, That feedback is really important to us. So, if there's stuff that isn't clear, it is helpful for us to know. And as I touched on earlier, the program closes on August 22nd at midnight. So you will have to have submitted that grant application through grants.gov. We expect to make notifications of selections at the end of this year, fourth quarter of this year into early next, and then anticipate awards will be out the door early next year. So we recently put together a Clean School Bus report to Congress that had highlights of the program, talked about the rebate program, stakeholder outreach and coordination, next steps for the program. Really encourage you to check out this report, which you can find on our website as well, and might have some lessons learned in there, and just touting some of the wins of the program in the first year. So in addition to the funding that I talked about for the Clean School Bus program, there's also some additional funding through the IRA that I think folks should be aware of, that can help with reducing emissions. We have $3 billion for a new Clean Ports program. We have $1 billion for Class 6-7 HD zero emission vehicles. That's mostly targeted to local governments, states. $60 million for the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act program. We're currently in the process of hosting public listening sessions to collect feedback on these programs. None of them are open at this moment, but they will be soon. So there's also a request for information open for some of these programs. Encourage you to learn more on our website at epa.gov/Inflation Reduction Act. There's also a lot of other great resources that we have for reducing climate emissions. Just to touch on too, we have the climate pollution reduction grants that went to states and MSAs. I think this planning for clean school buses is important to that planning as well. Connecticut as a state did opt in and receive $3 million. And then they will be eligible for an implementation bucket of funding that will open up at some point later on to implement a lot of these programs. So a lot of exciting resources out there, a lot of funding for pollution, recycling programs, water infrastructure as well, both through bill and the IRA. So we're very fortunate that we had the support of Congress in getting these programs done, and President Biden's leadership in getting these programs across the finish line. So just sort of ways you can stay in touch with us at EPA. You can read the full notice of opportunity at epa.gov. There, you can submit questions at cleanschoolbus@epa.gov. If you look on our website, you can sign up for a listserv that will provide you updates. You'll be the first to know when these grants open, when rebates open, when there's a webinar, when there's a request for information, when awards are going out. Encourage you to go there and sign up and take some time reading the NOFO. I want to stress that again. These notice of opportunities, are a little dense, but can be really helpful in just sort of learning what we're looking for, what all the rules and regulations are. I know that the process to put together a grant application is no small feat. So, when you're putting all that work in, just make sure you're in line with everything we're asking for, and you have everything you need to have a complete application. So thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today. Happy to take some questions, and look forward to working with you all.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. We appreciate you joining us, and I know the state of Pennsylvania definitely misses you, but we had a lot of fun getting it just stood up and rolling in our respective states and sharing ideas and working together. And for folks out there who might be curious, Jack is incredibly responsive. He will find an answer for you if you need one, or point you in the right direction. And I have to say that this administration, and I've been in public service now for almost 30 years, has been the most responsive, particularly through the BIL, the infrastructure team, in terms of getting answers, helping us work our way through these grants, and then sometimes telling people not to apply for something because it may just not work for a particular community. But the fact is that I've never had such a responsive relationship with folks in the White House and folks in the EPA and the various agencies that this program 30-odd agencies that this program touches. So thank you, Jack, and thank you for all your hard work. So as mentioned with that, we're going to throw it open to questions. And we also have a couple of folks here from Deep, Tracy Babbage and Paul Farrell. They certainly can weigh in from the state side. There is, and I know everybody's sitting there going, that's great, but I don't have any matching grant money. They're putting together a program for matching grant money for municipalities. So and we want to get as many applications as we can, and they're certainly here to answer any questions. Although that program is still in its infancy, it will be ready by the time we get rolling with this. So with that, if you have any questions, you can throw them in chat, and or Steve, maybe we can. I don't have the full screen now, but people can raise their hands.
Yeah, we can do the chat, I believe is what will work the best. But right now we have one question right off the bat from Roy S. And it's often rural school districts do not operate 15 buses. Is there an opportunity to potentially do, say, 5 buses?
Yeah, definitely. I think that for a school district of that size, you probably want to look at the rebate program as opposed to the grant program. Grant program sort of focusing on larger school bus awards, but for the rebate program, you could apply for as little as 1 bus. So as I mentioned earlier, we did the rebate program last year. We expect to have another round of the rebate program at some point in the future. So if you sign up on our website on that listserv, you'll be the first to know, and we'll certainly work through Mark and Steve to keep you guys updated when those things are coming your way.
Thank you, Jack.
Any other questions? We have questions for Jack. We got a guy from the EPA. He's ready to roll here, folks. What do you got for us?
While there's a pause in questions, I'll just mention that Paul from Deep did put a link to sign up for updates for that program that the commissioner mentioned for matching funds. So everyone should jump on that and get on the email list so that you're the very first person who can apply for matching funds.
And Paul, do you want to maybe just quickly hit on that real quick,
Yeah,
just sort of
that's a good
what you're considering?
Sure, thanks, Commissioner. I get on camera here to talk to everyone. So we're still in the infancy of developing the program. We're scoping out really where the gaps are in terms of phase 1 for EPA funding so that we can fill those with the applicants. And once we have a better sense of that, that will inform the budget that we need to ascribe to this program. And then we need to put the budget together and go to the bond commission and all that other fun stuff that goes with, funding this program and rolling it out. So we're hoping to get that done this fall at the latest, hopefully maybe even sooner. So that's why it's really important for folks that have, especially for round 1 received awards, to sign up immediately. And for folks as round 2 rolls out, to also be on that list. So we also need to, because the programs are a little bit different, we want to make sure that we're able to hit on both and satisfy the needs of awardees under both rounds.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that, as I travel around the state, and I think Steve and I will be in Greenwich next week, Mystic next week. So talk about 2 communities on both sides of the state. But the number one challenge I hear from our mayors and first selectmen, city, town planners, engineers, is the local match. Not just in this program, but in all programs. We know that. We're certainly cognizant of that, and that's why the governor's wisdom worked closely with Deep to put this money together. And so we're going to try to work on helping municipalities access these dollars to make these really transformative changes in how we do it. And for a little history for both Jack and Paul, I was in the legislature in 1999, and I proposed a bill that would eliminate diesel school buses. Because if you remember the big particulates that used to come out of the tailpipe, and if any of you guys are as old as I am, you remember standing at the school bus stop and that thing blowing right on you. You literally could see those things flying out of the tailpipe. Come a long way, but we've got more work to do. And even in Danbury, when I was mayor, I flipped over all the buses to propane. We're running propane in Danbury, which is a much cleaner fuel and quieter too, by the way. So definitely, we want people rolling over to electric and helping develop the infrastructure for that. So, if any folks out there have any questions?
Yes, sir. We got a few. So first, Austin from Newington Schools. Is there a certain year of bus or motor that will get funding faster?
I don't really think so. What I touched on earlier in the criteria is we're certainly, the goal of the program is zero emission buses. So, as long as you're following that criteria, and there was sort of a slide there where you can find more on our website on funding levels, depending on the certain class of the vehicle, there might be more funding available. I think that relates to cost. But I would just encourage you on our website to take a look at that and to learn more. And that should be included in the NOFO as well, the notice of opportunity. But I think generally we're trying to drive folks just to zero emission buses as the commissioner touched on, to really reduce those diesel emissions and to make things healthier for folks. So that's our overall goals here at EPI.
Perfect. Thanks, Jack. We actually have a few, so I'll just go through these. We have Phil H says, my company can convert existing fleet buses. Are there grants available for this, maximizing low carbon using existing steel?
I'm not sure off the top of my head if that is an eligible award for this program. But if you want to follow up with Steve, I can work on getting you an answer on that one. It might be that clean school bus question email that I posted to. That might be a good thing to send in a formal question to our program folks. But happy to try to run that down.
Perfect. Yeah, Paul, if you want to reach out to me directly, that's totally fine. We have Frank. He says that I'm a municipality with 60 older propane buses. Which would be better for his situation, rebate or grant program?
Sorry, on mute there. So, I think for if you wanted to replace all 60 at once, the grant program would be the larger, that would allow for larger an amount of buses. The rebate program is limited at up to 25. So, that's sort of, how you would sort of think about it. It also, one thing I should have touched on is just because nothing prohibits anybody from getting an award and then going for more buses in the future. There's no rule that prevents that. So, it might make sense to look at both opportunities and just sort of keep applying until you're successful.
Perfect. And then just a note from Paul from New Haven. He says that contractors must apply on behalf of 4 or more districts. So if you have a contractor working with your district, if you can partner with other districts, that may help folks in rural communities, such as the Roy, who mentioned that he only had 5 buses. Potentially, you could partner and get up to that 15. So as another option. And then the last question I have in the queue is from Mike S. And he's wondering if this funding includes hydrogen buses.
If it would be a zero emissions bus, I think it would qualify. I'm not sure on the technical aspect of hydrogen buses off the top of my head, but I'm happy to run that one down as well. If you want to send that over to Steve, Steve and I can regroup after this, and we can get back to you with a formal answer.
Yeah, happy to do that. That's all the questions we have in the queue. Are there any others? We have a little bit, maybe 5 more minutes or so.
Yeah, Steve, why don't we just run through the takeaways real quickly? Cutoff of this grant is 11:59 p.m. August 22nd, right, Paul? I'm sorry, Jack, right?
Yes. Yep.
And Paul and his team are working on developing a local match. So make sure you get on their email list. So as that ramps up, they'll be able to get information out to you. This is a little bit of a change in the program. If I remember the first rollout, definitely have broadened and widened the scope of eligible bus companies. One of the big things I heard in Connecticut was, well, we use a private bus company, and the initial rollout was just for municipally owned or district owned buses. So it's been great to see how nimble the federal government has been. And we have contact information about if you have a question, who to get back to. Jack, do we put that up for people, or Steve, you got that under control? In case anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I'm typing my email now, Commissioner.
Okay, so you can contact
directly
Steve.
to me. Yep.
And Steve will work directly with each of the cities and towns that want to participate. And I did think I saw one more question coming through the chat, so we'll let that person, and then we're going to let Jack get back to all the other stuff he's got to do today.
Absolutely. Yeah. The final question from Elmer is there a list of any pre-approved contractors?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. You know, I don't think we have a formal list of approved contractors, but one thing I just sort of want to touch on is just the Build America requirements here. You know, as folks probably know, President and legislation, there were strong Build America, Buy America requirements. You know, and folks ask us often. So, you know, EPA has determined that the school buses are not subject to BABA or Build America, Buy America requirements, but electric chargers are subject to Build America, Buy America requirements. So just something as you're looking at contractors and for this, you know, I mean, I think there's a number of contractors that build these buses in America, you know, but just something to take a look about. You know, there's more information on our Clean School Bus website about this as well. But just something that you know, just would be helpful for you all to listen. You know, I'm sorry, to learn more about, and that this is sort of important for just folks across the board for this program.
Awesome. There's just two more or one more question, I think. So first, Phil, no, there's no update on that. And secondly, Kevin is asking, is there ability to do an award for a multi-year, for example, if you're doing 25 total, 5 in year 1, 10 in year 2, et cetera? Is that, I believe this is year to year, but I'll let you speak to
Yeah,
that, Jack.
so yeah, we have different you know, basically this program is sort of operated year to year. You know, I think with the grant program, there's more flexibility on the awards and when they're actually made as opposed to the rebate program. So but I think you would have to go for one award. You know, you couldn't sort of go for, you know, I guess you could have different applications for you know, 5 in one year, 10 in another year. There would be nothing prohibited you from doing that. As opposed to just going for 25 in year 1. I think that answers your question, but if it doesn't, you know, feel free to, we can follow up.
And that's it, Commissioner.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. You know, I have that 55-minute rule, so we're at 58 minutes and 7 seconds, so we're close. Jack, thank you so much. Great strategic partner for us, and we're just so pumped with all the great work that we're doing as a team. We know that by working as a team, we get so much more done. So thanks again. Best wishes to you. I know that you're about 6-7 months, maybe a year into this new post, and they made a good choice in you. So let's stay in touch. And thanks, everybody. We'll be back at you with more webinars about the bipartisan infrastructure law and how you can access it in the coming months. So have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jack. And we'll be sending out this recording as well as the PowerPoint. Have a great day, everyone.